I don't play games to make bad reviews or bad videos on them. I really don't. Do you know why I played Life is Strange Reuinion after Double Exposure? Is because the choice genre is in a severe drought. After Telltale imploded and Quantic Dream has been radio silent for the past 8 years, there is literally nothing else to play. The only game in the choice-based genre at this moment in time is literally only Life is Strange. And look, I don't like David Cage as a person. Detroit Become Human, the system itself is very innovative. It's something that I wish more games did, but I understand why they don't. But The Wolf Among Us 2, look, Wolf Among Us fans, I'm so sorry. Puts hand on shoulder. I am so sorry. They're not gonna make another Walking Dead game anytime soon. They could make one with AJ's story, but it really doesn't seem like they're interested in that. And when you're desperate to play that kind of game, and this is all you have, it's all you have. You can probably guess that I did not like Life is Strange Reuinion very much. I was hoping Reuinion would take some of the interesting ideas and the choices that we made from Double Exposure and actually build off of that, like the previous games had. Even Life is Strange 2 took some of the choices from Life is Strange 1, even though it was about a completely different set of characters. And I was really hoping Reuinion would at least do that. I feel like that's the bare minimum for a choice-based game. But, spoilers for Life is Strange Reuinion, Life is Strange Double Exposure, and Life is Strange 1. At this point, 2 and 3 just don't matter to Deck 9, even though they realistically should with the plot that's going on. But, you know, Life is Strange Reuinion, I mean on the box art, they bring back Chloe. You guys like Chloe, right? They're holding up the Chloe flag. The story of Life is Strange Reuinion is that Max comes back from a successful art gallery showing or some sort of photography showing. She comes back home to Caledon and it's on fire. When she arrives at Caledon and it's initially on fire, I have problems with the game from the very beginning intro sequence. A lot of the things that happen in the game, they just assume you're very not smart. Because a lot of the things, if you think about them even a little bit, don't make any sense. Max gets to the campus. There are cops basically right in front of the building, but it's dead silent. To them, Max is just a random woman walking up onto an active situation, and the cops are like, all right, coffee break, and they both leave. They say they leave to go to another situation somewhere else. But it's like 3 seconds after Max starts walking up the steps, she hears screaming from inside.
Come on!
Campus security is out in force. Is it for fire or something else? Loretta's march. What does Loretta have to do with all this? Where did all this come from?
Get us out of here!
And it's like, did they only start screaming after the cops left or what? Max can't get the kids out because there's a lock and chains on the door. Right there, my brain is just like, wait, they don't have any sort of tools for this? I'm not saying that they should have the jaws of life, but like, you're telling me none of them have any tools to break open a window and drag these kids out? That scene only works, to be honest, if you just turn your brain off. She sees Moses and Chloe basically in the fire, and she's like, oh my goodness, oh my gosh, oh no. She has this photo. Her camera fell and a photo came out and it was like partially on fire. I don't really understand. And she goes back in that photo and she goes back to when it was taken, and it was taken 3 days before, but it still has like the imprint of the fire on it. Like I said, I don't understand that. I just like kind of ignored it. Time travel shenanigans, whatever. And Max is like, I have 3 days to stop this fire and save Caledon and save everyone. And this is the beginning of the game. Max basically cancels her art gallery engagement that she had in order to go back to Caledon and investigate and try to find out what started the fire, who started the fire, why the fire. There's this group, the Abraxas group. It's basically a fraternity / cult. I knew from Double Exposure that Abraxas was a secret society, but like them making it into a literal cult, maybe I'm tired of cults. The Chloe parts of this, I think I'm going to talk about separately, even though they happen like one after the other. It's like a Chloe scene and then a Max scene and then a Chloe scene and then a Max scene. But I think I would like to talk about Max separately from Chloe for several reasons that we'll be getting to. So she goes to find Moses to make sure that he's okay, and he is. And he's like, wow, you're back from the past, because remember, Moses already knows about Max's time travel abilities, and he's been having her do tests with them. I wish the test was like something new in something creative, but the test is literally what we already did in Double Exposure like 2 or 3 times, where Moses is like, hey, here's the thing. What thing am I holding up? It was the first test that he ever gave Max, and they just repeated it. That was so fun. So the test is over, and Reuinion does this thing that I really don't like, in which it basically throws all of your choices to the wayside relationship wise in order to shove Max and Chloe in your face. These were my decisions in Double Exposure. My choices are my own. But in Double Exposure, I romanced both Amanda and Vin. In Reuinion, both of those relationships just ended off screen. They ended off screen, everyone's all good now. It just feels like, why did I even bother doing that? It's not that I didn't expect it, because at the end of Double Exposure, Amanda gets pretty mad at you for basically cheating on her with Vin. The game has a line later on where it goes out of its way to tell you that no one remembers the double timelines, which makes their breakup make no sense. What does Amanda think happened exactly? That Max was just seeing Vin behind her back? Because I feel like the 2 timeline thing makes it complicated. I would just love to know what Amanda thinks happened in their relationship. I understand that Reuinion was made based on the premise of pushing Max and Chloe, but to just disregard any other relationship that the player might have made at the time, and it's never mentioned in game, well, that's not true. I mean, Amanda and Vin themselves don't talk about the relationship. It's like it never happened. You can talk about the relationships with Chloe, but for Amanda and Vin themselves, they're just like, we're fine, everything's cool. Which I don't feel like would happen. I feel like Amanda especially, because she had been so hurt by the end of Double Exposure, I feel like she would just not be able to talk to Max again. But they're chill. There's no explanation for why they broke up. They just did. Reuinion as a whole just feels very sanitized. Like the studio wanted to play it so safe. The choices from Double Exposure plainly just don't matter. Whether you pick to agree with Sophie at the end or reject her, if Max rejects her, she still has dialogue that's like, I don't know whether I want to kiss you or murder you right now, and that's really seemed to come out of nowhere for me. I felt like Sophie might have been into Max that way, but I don't feel like it was reciprocated in Double Exposure. But she says that and Max is like, well, yeah, makes sense. Did I play a very different Max, or it's just very strange? And I was also surprised that Lucas had such a big part in the story. The way that my choices went, it really doesn't make any sense for him to be in the position that anyone is listening to him. Even after what he did, he copied a student's book, basically plagiarized her, to the point that it drove her to not be alive anymore. Which is something so wild that the game just kind of glosses over as, he made a mistake. And for me to just see him sitting in the snapping turtle so casually and everyone's just letting him be there, like, am I remembering that scene wrong? Am I just remembering the game wrong, or what? Seeing that anyone was listening to him, let alone him being like a spearhead of the protest against Caledon, you have no stool to stand on. Why would anyone listen to you? Why wouldn't Max go public with what happened? Why are you allowed to sit here? In fact, why are you in my presence? He still has a book deal. He still has an agent. Like, of all the people who deserved it, why Lucas? I feel like a character who would have fit that role much better would have been Gwen from Double Exposure. But Gwen has been erased from the narrative. Like, she never existed because Gwen was actually done wrong by Caledon. Gwen's choices could make 2 drastically different Gwens. And I guess that one was too hard. That one was just too difficult to try and sanitize. But this is supposed to be the Max part of the video. Supposed to be. Max in Reuinion is legitimately dumb. It would have been better for her character if she had been an actual college student. Max is in this weird middle ground where she's a professor at Caledon, but her students all call her by her first name, like they're friends, and it's just really weird to me. Let me give you an example. An example from Reuinion. It's the first time we actually see Max teaching a class, and it only happens once. So Max goes outside to teach her class, because I guess they do it outdoors. And she's like, I want you to go and take photos of strangers. There's this one student, Reggie, who's having trouble taking a photograph. The guy that he wants to take a photograph of, he has a crush on. He wants to use the photo to kind of like wingman his way in there. It was just such a weird sequence of events to me, because remember, Max is a professor. Max is his teacher. You have the option to be the wingman yourself, you can encourage Reggie to be like, yeah, use the camera to get that guy. And when that doesn't work and you go back in time, you yourself go and talk to the guy and you find out what his interests are, so you can then relay that information to Reggie so that he can talk to the guy and talk about his interests in order to get his attention. The whole thing is just weird. She tells Moses the truth about the fire. She's like, hey, buddy, I hate to break it to you, but you're going to not be alive in a few days. And he's like, oh. Like I said, Max has so little brain cells, because I understand Moses wants to help and I understand he wants to be involved, but like, you can be involved from a distance. I feel like he should not be on campus. Max should be doing everything she can to get Moses off campus for just literally a day. You can help me Friday, you can help me Saturday, but Sunday you have to go somewhere else. But Max doesn't even bring that up at all. I feel like that's the first thing that would come to anyone's mind. Instead of being like, hey, you stay on campus with me and help me figure out this fire. Like, I understand that's his office, but does he not have like campus housing? Or does he not have an apartment or anything? Does he live in that office? That's where he lives? But no, Max never ever brings up, hey Moses, maybe don't be on campus that day. Instead, it's all like, the fact that I am going to die is just meant to happen. And it's like, no, it's not, because you can just not be on campus that day. I don't know if you realize that you have legs and you can willingly walk off of campus. Now that you know this information and you know that in a few days you're not going to be around anymore permanently, maybe go home for literally a few hours. No one ever brings that up as an idea or a possibility. And also, we'll get to Moses later. But Max is brain dead because in order to stop the fire, she goes through a bunch of shenanigans. But at the end of the day, she knows the fire specifically is going to happen on Sunday, sometime after sundown. And people are going to get trapped in the building. Like, someone is going to do that on purpose. So I don't understand, like, as they get closer to the deadline and they're not able to figure anything out, I don't know why Max's last effort plan wasn't like, hey, I don't know how to say this in a YouTube safe way. She can call from an anonymous source somewhere else that there is a some kind of threat. Max, how about you walk over there and pull the fire alarm? How about that? Unless Caledon just doesn't have fire alarms. And none of them discuss this. None of them discuss this possibility. Like, hey guys, we can maybe delay this from happening or stop it entirely from happening by just pulling the fire alarm so that all the students are forced to evacuate out of the buildings. One of them is a physicist and they don't think of this solution. I feel like Moses might not, because he might be thinking too grand, but I feel like Chloe of all people should be like, why don't we just pull the fire alarm, guys? I feel like there are several solutions to this problem that Max just decided not to think of. Hello, Editor Me here to interrupt myself to say that on my second playthrough, I did find notes that explained why the sprinklers weren't working and why there was no water going into the building. They actually had excuses for that. I don't feel like the excuses make any sense. So there's actually two notes. The first note says that because of the protest, Caledon is going to be shutting off all of their water valves just in case anything happens. That's definitely how colleges work. When you know there's a protest happening and that protest could possibly get out of control, and you also see them carrying torches on campus, the thing that you should do as a college is turn off the whole water supply. The second note is about why the sprinklers aren't working. The excuse for that is Owen, the temporary principal or headmaster or whatever he is, because of the structural changes that he's doing to the buildings around campus, the fire sprinklers were turned off until further notice, which is also not how that works. So you want me to read this and be like, oh yeah, that makes sense, because no, it doesn't. That doesn't really negate anything that I'm saying, because why would Caledon do this? If you're doing construction on a building, unless you're somehow doing construction on the entire campus at once, why would you need to turn off sprinklers campus-wide for the construction that you are doing? How does that make any sense? Anyway, I just wanted to insert that for anyone that might be like, but there's a note that explains why they didn't pull the fire alarm or why they didn't do any of the things that you're suggesting. Yeah, there is an excuse, but it's a dumb excuse. Anyway, back to your regularly scheduled program. And also, it was really weird to me that Max never mentioned to anyone the part where the students were chained and locked in the buildings. I feel like that's a significant detail that she told neither Moses or Chloe. She treats the fire as a much bigger deal than the fact that the students were locked and chained in the atrium. She could at least like prepare more for the day, get some bolt cutters from somewhere. But no, their plan is to infiltrate, break in, and prevention is key. Only you can prevent forest fires. She only has the one picture that she used to jump back. I don't understand for the life of me why Max would not take more pictures of herself. If she knows that the fire is coming and she clearly uses her powers, it's not a block that she has anymore. She has been using them frequently for very minor things for a while. But she doesn't take any photos because if she had infinite retries, then there is no story. I think allowing Max to use the photo jumping at will was probably the worst decision Deck 9 ever made, because now instead of dealing with it, they just don't deal with it. Max should be taking photos of herself all the time, but she doesn't. Like, this is before she has that talk with Chloe and Safi where she starts to think, maybe I have been making everything worse. Maybe by doing X, Y, and Z, I have been causing these things to just get worse and messing up the timeline. For that talk that made her question herself, why wouldn't she have been taking photos? I think it would have said something even if after that she burns them in fear of like making things worse. And Abraxas. I really don't want to talk about Abraxas anymore. I haven't even started talking about it, but it has some of the dumbest sequences of the video game. It really does. But first, let's talk about Moses. Look, if you watch my double exposure vid, you know that I love Moses, or I loved Moses, past tense. I just don't like the way that Reuinion treats him, because he's no longer a character in Reuinion. He's just an exposition machine. Like, the characters go to Moses when they need something explained or when they need the answer to a question that they have. Once he answers the question, he literally turns and walks off screen. He's literally just a human-sized book. Thumbs down. They definitely ruined Moses for me, which is unfortunate because I think he was the only character that I liked after they off-screened Amanda and Vin. I still don't want to talk about Abraxas. Chloe. So, Chloe's role in this story is because of the timeline merge that Max did at the end of Double Exposure, she's basically been suffering from timeline sickness. She's Schrodinger's cat. She's both alive and dead at the same time. Oh yeah, and Arcadia Bay is back because... Anyway, she's been having visions of herself in the bathroom and other visions of Safi, because I guess they're connected because they're both alive and at the same time. I have a lot of feelings about Loretta. I like some of her parts, but also her parts are also steeped in dumbness. There's this part where Max sneaks into an abandoned Abraxas building. So Loretta's already there trying to find the secrets of Abraxas. They were set to tear down the building. These cops come by and they knock on the basement door. Max is like, we gotta stay quiet, we gotta stay quiet. And I understand because she's a teacher. If they find her there, she's probably going to get arrested. But then the cops start to leave and they're like, okay, proceed with the demolition. And I think Max and all her brain cells should immediately like, hey, we're actually in here, like knock on the door. But no, she stands there while Loretta's like, what are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? Max and all her brain cell potential decides that she's going to cut the demolition charges, which... And I sigh. It's just that she very obviously cuts the wires, which saves both her and Loretta's life. In the original timeline, when Max was gone on her art retreat thing, Loretta had died in that explosion because they didn't realize she was down there, so they demolished the building. But Max cuts the demolition charges, which is like, yay, hero moment. But then, if you think about it just a smidge, wouldn't the people who come onto the site afterwards realize that the demolition charges were like purposefully cut? Completely unrelated. Loretta admits to Max she told the cops that she was the one sneaking around and she was the one that was there in the building. I'm just saying these two things do not connect. Maybe they should connect, but Reuinion just moves on from that. The demolition charges were very clearly cut. Realistically, Loretta should be going to jail forever. Okay. we kind of have to minorly talk about Abraxas. So Loretta is, she's doing her investigative podcast on Abraxas. Loretta is pretty stumped because she's been searching Abraxas and she hasn't been able to find anything. And so Max is like, hey, I can help you. And so Max walks around the library and picks up the first 5 books on each shelf, and they have the keywords to help Loretta get a breakthrough on her search. And it's like, girl, you could have just stood up. The books are highlighted for the player, but they're not hidden. You don't have to do anything special to get to them. They're just on the shelf. And it's like, Loretta, have you tried reading? It's like Max just takes a stroll around a quick jog around the library while she's sitting there on her computer and finds all the keywords that she needs. Like, how have you not found this yourself? It's not like Max had to do anything special. She picked up a book, opened it. It was like, wow, yeah, this makes sense. I gotta tell Loretta this. Do you not have a library card? I don't understand. I just have you attempted to read? Like, have you tried standing up? Max is also investigating Abraxas. She saw graffiti on the ground that linked Abraxas to the reason why the fires had started. Through a bunch of shenanigans, they find out that Abraxas hosts a yearly bonfire party. Chloe and Max get the brilliant idea to snoop on the bonfire party from within, but to do that, they need masks. Chloe steals a mask from Sophie, gives it to Max. Max rewinds time so that Sophie doesn't know that happened, even though I feel like she would notice that her purse is much lighter all of a sudden. So they got the mask, they go to the party, they dress in black, kind of. Max dresses in black. Chloe does not change clothes at all. And also they make no effort to hide their identities. Max doesn't do anything to cover her hair or change her hairstyle. The back of her head and the side of her head is still very recognizable. And I feel like, especially as a teacher, it'd be even more recognizable. But I digress. So Max sneaks into the party and she needs to get another mask for Chloe, because they only have the one. Max is looking around. She finds Reggie. Because once she finds Reggie, the goal is to get information from him. But if she says anything, he recognizes her voice. And then it's like, oh, ew, my teacher's here. Oh, I can't deal with this right now. And he leaves. Bookmark that in your brain for about 2 minutes from now. In order to get Reggie to talk to her and let his guard down, Max is offered blood alcohol. I don't know if it's alcohol. It's definitely laced with something. She pulls up her mask, but she turns away, even though the back of her head would be facing Reggie, and he'd be like, huh, that hair looks suspiciously like my... Okay, I digress. She drinks the blood tonic, and then she joins Reggie in the other room. And then Reggie drops some information that she can use to rewind with. Like, the right answer to this whole puzzle in order to get information out of him is to say, hey, I'm actually Max. Which, take the bookmark out from 2 minutes ago. The solution is outing herself, but only in the very specific way that the game wants you to out yourself, because if you do it before, Reggie goes ew gross and refuses to talk to you. And then she finds a mask because she takes it off of a sleeping person's face. I feel like Teacher Max should be very concerned with all of these. This is why she should have been a student, because Professor Max is like terrible for not doing anything about any of this, for even partaking in it, to be honest. Even for her own purposes of investigation. Reggie reveals some stuff, like way more than he ever should to his teacher, to be honest. And then Max goes back outside to give the mask to Chloe. And so they go back inside together, even though this green-haired girl wearing like a jean jacket and jeans is very distinct in the crowd, but no one cares. Oh yeah, I forgot. Because it's so weird. It's such a weird moment with Reggie and Max. Because once Max reveals herself and it's the correct time to reveal herself, Reggie turns away, takes off his mask, and then turns back to face her and keeps talking. And why? Do you guys know the point of masks? Like, I understand that Max already knows who he is, but you guys are in a crowded room talking about very sensitive information, and you just take off your mask for the lulz, if you say so. Why even have... I didn't even talk about Owen. He's just such a stereotype. Owen is just villain who hates the protagonist. That's it. Literally, there is a hallway full of pictures of the professors, and he's the only one framed in a sinister red light, and it's just like, you guys are kind of doing too much. Owen needs him to get rid of something in the super secret basement, and he's very nervous about doing it, but he kind of has to do it because the president of the school, and it's something that can make Owen look very, very bad. Chloe ends up going into the basement. She finds a painting, and guess what happens when she moves the painting? Guess what's behind it? Like the very first painting in the basement. It's the symbol to unlock the super secret door that barely anyone in Abraxas knows about. So that was easy. And wow, you wouldn't believe it, the key happened to be hanging right there by the door. How they kept anything secret in this cult is beyond me. Chloe starts to take the key off. She drops it somehow. It breaks into pieces, which, okay. And then Chloe sees a coaster, a round coaster, and she's like, oh, this will work. And she puts it in the lock, and it works. And okay, like my brain cells are fizzling out actively. But anyway, Chloe gets into the super secret room super secretly. As soon as she's in the room, she takes off her mask. Not that it was doing much anyway, but why? Why are you people like this? So she takes it off, she puts it down. She will never pick it back up, by the way. So Chloe, in her genius, as she's leaving the secret room, she doesn't close the door. She doesn't collect her mask. She hears someone coming and hides behind the curtain, very obviously, because her arm is sticking out. But you know, we don't think about that. We don't think in this household, okay? This is not a game for thinking. But Reggie comes down. The door to the secret room, the super secret room, is wide open. Guess who doesn't care? The president of Abraxas. Oh, there's a guy. He has a mask. He comes down. He's the reason why Chloe hides initially. He has a sledgehammer. He sees that the secret room is open. He literally shrugs and goes inside and then bashes open a brick wall in order to get to the super secret part of the super secret room. And then he comes back out without whatever he went in for. Chloe's still hiding. Reggie comes down and then he like starts walking menacingly towards Reggie, and Reggie's like, wait, you can't do this. Don't do this to me. Chloe then decides to play police noises on her phone. And I don't know. Unless she became an expert hacker or her phone automatically connects to the house's Bluetooth, the sound would literally only be coming from that corner. Can you imagine? You're about to sledgehammer somebody, and then from the corner of the room, you just hear wee woo, wee woo, wee woo. Like you would just turn and stare because what? But no, this is Reuinion, guys. This is Reuinion. So on the spot, upon hearing police sirens, he drops his sledgehammer and runs upstairs. Okay. So Reggie is saved by Chloe. He does not question why she's there or why the secret room is open. He does not attempt to retrieve whatever he was going to get from the secret room. He sees Chloe and is basically like, I don't have time for this, and then goes back upstairs. And it's like, okay, this might as well happen. So Chloe is left with both entrances now open, free for her to peruse, because nothing takes effort anymore. The guy with the sledgehammer just opened it, dropped the sledgehammer, fled. Chloe finds a box in the secret part of the room. She brings it out into the main room. Meanwhile, Max is upstairs tripping out. Like I said, there was something in the blood tonic. Chloe later thinks it's mushrooms, which probably, she was tripping out pretty hard. But she takes off her mask, which I can excuse that one because she was tripping out hard. She didn't know where she was. People were turning into objects. She started seeing herself in the mirror, and that mirror was being mean to her. It was a really good scene. It doesn't really make up for the rest of it, but that was a good scene. Thumbs up. Meanwhile, Chloe's in the basement. She drags this box, this super secret box, out into the main room. Max eventually stumbles down because she's tripping out and she thinks something happened to Chloe, so she runs down. Chloe looks into the box and she's like, Max, you don't want to see this. And they find a box full of human remains, which is typical cult things, I think. So it wasn't really that shocking to me. But they hear footsteps. Chloe drags Max behind a shelf full of things. Max thinks she hears the skeleton talking to her. She tries to shush it. It's the sledgehammer guy that comes down. I guess he remembered that he forgot his sledgehammer. This is why I don't want to talk about Abraxas, because it has the stupidest moments in this game. And what happens next is the dumbest moment in the game. He sees this box partially open on the floor with human remains, does not question how it got there. Like, the secret room is wide open. So is the room that he smashed open. The box, for some reason, has now teleported outside. He looks at it. He's like, oh wow, a gift for me? Thank you, heaven. And then he picks up the box and he just leaves. He doesn't question it. He just picks up the box and goes upstairs. And then Chloe starts to follow him, but Max is tripping out, so she has to go back and be like, hey Max, I have to take care of you. Where does he think that box came from? I don't think insulting is the right word, because it was like so low IQ. The devs thought that not even that you had room temperature IQ, that your IQ was in the core of the earth, like in the negatives. The box was not there when he ran upstairs because of the police sirens. He comes back down. There's suddenly a box in front of him outside the room. I guess he thought it came from under the earth and like came up. He doesn't even look around questioningly and like start searching the basement area. He's just like, oh wow, free box, picks it up, leaves. And now, ladies and gents and everything in between, the final hour of the game. This is where we reach the peak of Brain Dead Mountain. What happens next after the Abraxas party? It's like Max's powers are still evolving because they meet up in the observatory for a group meeting. And it's hard to describe. I think I'll just have to show it to you. The thing is, the more that they let Max be able to do, the more the story falls apart. She can alter timelines and she's like attracting other superpowered people towards her. But after the light show, from all the sleuthing that Max and Chloe have been doing, this is where you pinpoint the suspect that you think is involved in the arson, based on all the clues you gathered. And for Chloe, the choices are Ren, who I literally didn't remember. Anyway, Ren is the correct answer. I sat in silence for so long trying to get my brain to conjure up the other names. There's 4 choices, and I remember Ren because he's the correct answer, but the other 3 are just like static pictures in my brain. Ren basically has daddy issues because it turns out that his dad is the body in the basement, the body of bones in the basement, and he has held a grudge against Caledon ever since. And Chloe does a little bit of backtalk to him. She just peer pressures him into telling her all of this. The people in this game, they fold after very little pushing. So for Max, the choices are Owen, Lucas, Safi, or Reggie. Wait, one of those is Chloe's choice because the 4th choice is actually Vin. I have to remind you at this point that Moses is an astrophysicist. Moses and Chloe, they have the brilliant idea, the day of the fire, to go up to the exact place where Max said they died, but they're bringing like a fire extinguisher and fire retardant blankets, and they're going up there in order to use Moses' telescope in order to try and help Max and spot who set the fire. Because you can be wrong, and I was wrong. I was right about Ren, but I picked Owen, and he's incorrect, and as a result, Vin dies. But that's getting ahead of myself. Chloe and Moses, they're so smart. You guys know that you die up there. So your brilliant idea is to go up there. But now you guys have flame retardant blankets and you brought a single fire extinguisher with you. Also, you brought a ladder. This is why this is the peak of Brain Dead Mountain, because in what world would someone tell you the exact time, place, and date that you're going to die? And your response is, I'm going to go up there actually. And also they know that Chloe and Moses died together. So they decide to go up together to the site where they died. I really can't. I can't expend more brain cells thinking about this. So there's this cop, Noelle. I haven't mentioned her that much at all because she's been like the 3rd or 4th minor antagonist, and she's also not really that antagonistic. She's just doing her job, really. Noelle is campus security, and that's really all you need to know about her and her personality. So Max is on campus. She just coincidentally gets to the spot where he's about to throw himself at the wall in order to start the fire, and it's just so cheesy and dramatic. The whole time Max is watching, and then Noelle teleports in behind him and tackles him just in the nick of time before he can throw it and start the fire. Was she just T-posing behind him the entire time? Where did she come from? So it's up to Max, of course, to do everything around here. The Abraxas building that the party was held at, it ends up going boom. And Max is like, oh no, I couldn't stop it after all. And even though we did stop the arsonist, the fire happens anyway. And it's up to Super Max to save the day. She follows the custodian to like the custodian shed area of the building. She sees a hose. And her brilliant idea is, hey, if we plug in hose, we can get water to put out fire. And it's like, I don't know what you think a hose is going to do against a fire like that, but let's go with that. The custodian is like, oh, I need to go gather the hose or something. You go turn on all the water valves. The next part of this, before she even goes to the water valves, she basically sees a sprinkler box in the corner and it's disabled. And Max turns it on. Like the custodian didn't notice. No one attempted to turn on the sprinklers in the building that is on fire. No, Max had to do it. So Max goes, she turns on the water valves. Neither the custodian or the hose idea is ever seen again. Max grows half a brain cell and she's able to smash in the window. In my opinion, she doesn't smash it out enough for anyone to actually be able to climb through. And she's like, you guys, there's an opening. And you just hear a distant yell, oh, there's an opening, guys, come on. Even though you can't see anybody and you won't see anybody. The campus is pretty much empty when it's Max's turn. Like it really felt like, of all all parts of the game, that part was the most rushed. It's just a disembodied voice calling out from the flames. I think it's the poet that she saves. Irrelevant, he doesn't have a name. Max does not attempt from that point forward to smash in any of the windows. She's like, I did it once, that's enough. Meanwhile, on the roof, Chloe sees Max down below waving her down. She leaves Moses and goes basically downstairs. She realizes that it's not Max at all who called her, but it was Safi, transformed into Max. Believe it or not, this is actually unironically the best part of the game because it's the part of the game that I actually enjoyed the most because it actually felt like my choices up to that point mattered. So Safi brings Chloe into the lighthouse dimension, I'll call it. Safi conjures up the image of Max that was in Double Exposure, the one that we all thought killed her until it was revealed that it wasn't her. For once, in the whole game, it felt like my choices really mattered up to that point because I was not kind to Safi. At one point, she asked Max to run away. You can't say yes. You could be gentler about turning her down. I wasn't. And as Chloe, fake Max tries to convince her to run away, I basically told her to F off. And then 2 minutes later, she's in the lighthouse dimension. She's about to take herself out. And in that moment, it actually felt like a Life is Strange game because I was reflecting on all my choices and I was like, oh no. I was mean to her basically this entire playthrough. Even though Chloe's trying to convince her and saying all these things, I kept thinking back to my choices and I was like, I don't think I was ever nice to her. I basically rejected her at every turn, and now the game is putting it in front of me that I need to convince this woman to live after everything I did. And it actually really did feel like a choice-based game. In the end, Safi takes herself out. She has the opportunity not to, but, well, I clearly failed. But once Chloe is able to leave the mirror dimension, the entire building is on fire. Moses comes down, but he can't reach her because the stairs are like destroyed. Max ends up coming in. It just looks like she developed the ability to teleport. I know that logic-wise, it's because she's rewinding constantly and it looks like she's teleporting around, but the game just can't do that. There are some instances where you can rewind in front of just normal people around campus. It would definitely look like Max just appeared on the spot in front of him. So when does it matter, game? Because she would be somewhere else, she would rewind, and she wouldn't be in that place anymore. But no one reacts to this, so I just assumed it was just for the player. She's been doing this basically the whole game. What does it look like to other people? That question will not be answered because Deck 9 is not interested in answering that question. Max teleports, saves Chloe, brings them both back to the roof. Guys, is there like a quarter of a brain cell between the three of you? Like, what's happening? The ladder that one of them put up against the building falls down because the building shakes a bit because it's being actively destroyed. And Max forgets she has the power to rewind. She could easily rewind, grab the ladder before it falls, and prevent that from happening, and like hold it steady so that the other two can climb down it. But that's not dramatic enough. So she forgets she has the ability to rewind, and for some reason, I really don't know why, because I don't know what Chloe's plan was, but Chloe decides, I'm going to go over the rail and stand on the edge of the building that's on fire and also shaking and actively being destroyed. But she's standing on the edge. When the fire explodes, it tosses her off the building. This moment is animated really good. I don't know game dev terms, I'm so sorry. It actually is like the best looking scene in the game, but it makes no sense. She's falling and Max is trying to rewind to get her up, but she can't. And it looks like Chloe is just destined to fall. But that's also bait. Max, she gets a power up from existing, I guess. She's able to hold Chloe in place because she can now freeze time, not just rewind it. She goes all the way downstairs, leaving Moses upstairs in the fire, by the way. Once Chloe and Max start talking, Moses disappears from the plot. So she holds her in the air, and then somehow she's able to move a cart of leaves in the way so that Chloe falls on that, like this is Assassin's Creed. I don't know how she does it because the game is not interested in showing how she does it, so that's how you know that she shouldn't have been able to do it. But Chloe falls onto this cart, and she's fine. Moses teleports downstairs because why not? He's fine. The next scene, it's the potential funeral scene because if you save everybody, obviously there won't be a funeral scene. If you fail to save everybody and some people die, because different people can die, but some of the people that can die, I literally didn't remember that they were in the game. One of Max's students died. She didn't react to that, by the way. I found out she died at the funeral because I didn't even know she was in the fire or where she was. I chose to give the photo to Max It would have been really cool if giving the photo to Max was a way to restart the game. If you rip up the photo, you get credits, but if you give her the photo and you want to replay the game, that's the way you replay the game. Like Max ends up going through the photo and the game restarts. But that's not what happens. Max sees the photo, she kind of lingers on it a little bit, and she leaves the room. That's not the end, because they do a greatest hits reel of all the moments from Life is Strange 1, from the remaster. And it just goes on for so long that it no longer feels like they're reminiscing, but it feels like the most nostalgia bait I've ever seen in my life. Like at first it was like, oh, look at these moments, and then it goes on for another 2 minutes. It even shows flashbacks of Rachel, even though Rachel was not mentioned in Double Exposure or Reuinion. That's it. So before I end, I'm going to talk about a few miscellaneous things that just also make the game worse. At the end of Double Exposure, when Sophie basically makes her Avengers team, Reuinion backtracks on that so hard that it's actually comical. Like, they saw the reception to it and they just axed the idea of Sophie's Avengers team. So now the ending of Double Exposure doesn't make any sense with what happens in Reuinion, because Sophie doesn't do anything, actually. She kind of trolls a bit by pretending to be other people, but other than that, she doesn't do anything in the game. It seemed like at the end of Double Exposure that she recruited Diamond. The game made it seem like Diamond was starting to have powers because her nose started bleeding. And Sophie goes up to her like she's recruiting her. Reuinion decides to handle that plotline by erasing Diamond from existence. We will never know the outcome of that scene. We will never know if she had powers, why she had that nosebleed, what was Sophie's intentions with her. Well, that's not true. We do hear from Diamond. Max gets an email from her. There are some text messages. That's it. The whole finale of Double Exposure just frankly makes no sense with the way the game after it is. It just makes both games worse. Because now there's actually frankly no reason to play Double Exposure, because Reuinion does not follow many, if any, choices from that. And yes, I did do a second playthrough at this point in time where Chloe died. I do like that there's different dialogue, but that's about it. The thing is, you're choosing to make a game with two very separate choices that should lead to two very separate paths, but instead of doing that, you only change the dialogue, but every main event scene and every cutscene is exactly the same, whether she lives or dies. Why choose to make that kind of game if you're not interested in making that kind of game? I'm so confused by Deck 9 all the time. It just felt like they wanted quick money with Reuinion. But with that, that's going to be it from me. I hope you liked my review of Life is Strange Reuinion. I'll see you guys next time. Later.